What if everything we've been told about autoimmunity is wrong? I'm Elizabeth Yarnell. After awakening partially blind one morning in 1999, a doctor told me my multiple sclerosis would put me in a wheelchair within 10 years. I refused to accept that as the end of the story, so I started investigating. Welcome to the Inflammation Investigator, the podcast that uncovers the inflammation lurking underneath your ailments. Because autoimmune and chronic conditions should not be viewed as death knells when they are actually alarm bells. I'm a traditional naturopath and founder of the Inflammation Academy. And in 2 episodes every week, we dig into what conventional medicine might be missing. If you're living with chronic or unexplained symptoms, this investigation is for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Let's start listening. Hi, welcome back to the Inflammation Investigator. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Amber Brooks. Dr. Brooks is an integrative pediatric wellness provider with a background in both traditional and integrative medicine. For over 18 years, she has worked with families whose children are delayed, while also dealing with issues like GI issues, nutrition deficiencies, picky eating, and sleep disturbances, behavioral challenges, ADHD, and autism. In her book and clinical work, Dr. Brooks teaches that inflammation is usually a symptom of deeper digestive, immune, or developmental problems. She uses a whole child approach that looks at appetite, behavior, bowel habits, and sleep together, then helps parents understand what questions to ask and what patterns matter most. Her goal is to reduce shame and power struggles around difficulties and to give parents a clearer path forward. Dr. Amber Brooks, welcome to the Inflammation Investigator.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so let's start off by saying what brought you into this work with children with developmental delays and autism and ADHD, these kinds of issues?
Yeah, so I knew in school I was going to do pediatrics. That was a given. I've worked with kids since I was 12 or 13. And so I was working in a clinic right out of school, and a woman had come in to see one of the other doctors in the office and was talking about her son with autism and how he had recovered. And this was in 2007. So one of the doctors mentioned it to me, and in my mind, I was said to myself, recovered, what does that mean? Like, that's not a thing. And so she had actually documented it and made sort of like a home video kind of deal about their journey. And so I went home and watched it that weekend and was just shocked. And all the things that I've done for myself through the years, nutrition and diet and controlling inflammation and knowing that food is both wonderful and horrible all at the same time, depending on what we're putting in our bodies, and how that somehow slowed down that inflammation enough for him to sort of come out of his diagnosis. And so that was the kind of the beginning of the curiosity. And within about 18 months, I was, just seeing kiddos with delays and on the spectrum. Also, I'm going to sprinkle in chronic illness and genetic variations. So that's also things that I love to do. So that's kind of the story.
I can relate to that very well because with my own son, who was kind of my laboratory experiment when he was a child, I could see very clearly how his behavior would change based on what he ate
Sure.
and how his moods would change, how his what's the word I want to look for? His not oh wow, I'm blanking out on the word, not obeisance, not that he would obey, but how disruptive he would be in his
Sure.
classrooms and in the family, and how compliant he might be with directions or not, really depending on what he ate. For him, very much red food dye was a huge trigger for his behavior issues. And he wasn't considered to be on the autism spectrum. In fact, he was kind of at the other end, or maybe both ends, what we would call twice gifted, right? With um,
Sure.
a gifted and talented kiddo who was having some behavioral and emotional issues. And I was able to really track it back to food. So, how has your work been affected? Do people accept that you work with that there's behavioral and environmental changes that you can make that can change their kids' lives with these developmental issues?
Yeah, it's hard to ignore, but it's also hard to see through the woods when you're standing in the middle, right? And so I think a lot of parents are drinking through a fire hose, especially just where we've come along in technology, what you have access to, what you can find out, whether it be true or false. Let's preface it there. But I feel like over the years it's gotten better. Back in the early days, it was one of these things where I was more of a last resort than a first call,
Right. Hmm.
because the diagnoses were being done, or still are done, by developmental pediatricians, psychiatrists, and neurologists. So they focus on this as you know, a code, a DSM code of, behavioral and or neurological, right?
Uh-huh.
And so in order to get things paid from insurance, they added it to that side. And so it became and is, neurological, but most parents go, they get a diagnosis and then they're told, do ABA for the behavior or get on medication for the behavior. So treat the behavior, right? Suppress that, and then that's all you can do. You're sort of stuck, which is a prison for a parent. That lack of being able to help or control, or living in this maybe world of, well, maybe it'll get worse, maybe it'll get better, maybe it will stay the same. It's just terrible. So I think that, I'm a scientist too, so I think there's definitely what people would say, there's a woo-woo side of me, and then there's a very staunch scientist side of me, and so the two of them kind of mesh and meet in the middle. So I like to see how the kids are doing clinically on labs and things like that, right? I mean, when parents come in and say they have mood swings, or they're refusing to eat, or they don't, oh, they only poop once a week and we were told that was normal, or they're picky eaters and they eat three foods, right? Oh, well, all kids are picky eaters. And so all of these things through just generations and generations, because it's not decades, it's generations that have said this. Their mothers, their grandmothers, their family doctors, they're even, and of course, their new pediatricians are being taught by those doctors. And so it's just this perpetual cycle of, let's pay attention to what we don't like, which is the behavior, be it lack of language, be it stimming behaviors, vocal tics, meltdowns, right? Where parents can't leave the house because they can't really trust they're going to get to a restaurant and it's not going to be a nightmare. And that's
Uh-huh.
embarrassing, right? You get somewhere and other people are kind of looking at you like, deal with your kid. And you're like, I'm doing my best, right? And so I think it becomes really easy when you hold their hand through it. It's really hard to tell someone, do all these things in your kitchen. Good luck, right? So yeah, I have parents come to me and say, yeah, we tried diet changes, it didn't work. And so I say, would you just give me a chance? Would you just give it another chance and let me help you through it? And I've been restricted in my own diet through the last 25, 30 years. So I taste a lot of the things that kids would eat or kids would want to eat, so that I can help parents and coach them on, like, hey, this is a good brand. This tastes like this. The kids usually they're very texture oriented. So if I can tap into what those things are that they're getting drawn to, I can often find substitutions that are appropriate without mom having to sort of grow her own garden and, cook from scratch, which can be almost impossible, I think, for a lot of people, including myself. So it's one of these things you have to make it reasonable and doable because eating McDonald's 3 times a day is about as worse as it can get. So any improvement from there, I'll take it, is kind of how I handle it in the beginning. And then, of course, that it speaks for volumes. The kids prove me right every time. So they make it easy for me to do my job.
So when you work with kids with autism and ADHD, and we'll just kind of group them together for this
Sure.
conversation, and you change their diet, what else do you do for them besides dietary changes?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think I do have parents that come to me saying, we saw a nutritionist, we did the diet change, we just didn't see much progress. And I've always taught that the body can be pretty cranky. And luckily, God gave me a very cranky body. So I understand that struggle. And so I tell parents sometimes it's the way that you do it and the order that you do it and the way that you support it, right? It's not always about that one thing I did. Even though we've all had experiences in our own health journey that we say, hey, we did this and oh my gosh, that was a life changer, right? But was it really
Hmm.
that one thing? How about the 10 things you did before that, right? And so for me, I think it's important to sort of support their system. All of the kids are coming in, you know, very, very nutrient deficient. A lot of them are having bowel issues, sleeping issues, picky eating issues. And that's not to say that a neurotypical child does not have nutritional deficiencies, because that's just not true either. I could
Hmm.
take any kid
Right.
off the street and they're going to have that. Unfortunately, it affects the kids on the spectrum just a little bit more because they are a bit more sensitive, right? So they don't have those vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and good things to sort of slow down inflammation in their gut in general, even digest food and take nutrients from it. Every once in a while, every once in a blue moon, I get a kid who's a great eater, and the labs still look junky, and you think, well, we're feeding them all the right things. And I have parents I know are absolutely doing all the things, right? And it's still not working. And so that can be really frustrating. So for me, it's supporting them even above and beyond that with supplements and getting their system sort of back up and running, filling in those gaps.
And I assume you use some specific lab tests to figure out what supplements to use.
Yeah, usually in the beginning, I mean, in functional medicine, I mean, we could go on and on for days. We could probably blow all the money in your bank account if we wanted to on labs, right?
Right.
So I sort of, I always say I spend your money as if it were my own, right? So what is the best bang for the buck? What's going to tell me the most information right now? And my primary concern is getting the kids out of pain. And my families will say, well, they're not in pain. Well, a lot of my kids are nonverbal, actually, most all of them. And so they can't really explain that they're in pain, but their behavior, those meltdowns you see, that short fuse you see, right,
Right.
um is pain, is I'm uncomfortable, is I don't like that. That picky
Right.
eating, same thing. It's I don't want to eat that. That is painful. Food for you and I, amazing. I mean, you and I are strict. You're even more strict than me, but it's still like I still like to go out, right? I still like to go out and eat things, and I get excited about that. Like we went and had sushi last night. Um, but my kids in my practice, food is for survival only. I mean, they don't enjoy their food. They don't, I mean, they obsess, right? To the point of
Uh-huh.
I want that brand. If it's not that box, if it's not that color, they're looking at mom like, I'm not eating that chicken nugget. That's not the same brand, right? And it's because it's pain. It's what's safe for me is what I want because I've decided that these things in my box are safe, albeit maybe they are good choices. Maybe, but most of them, as you and I both know, are not good choices. um, but parents are stuck. It's like, well, if I don't feed them that, they won't eat. And it's true, they won't. They absolutely won't until they're out of pain. So for me, that's my first goal. I need them out of pain. So I like to look at urine, stool, blood work, and then depending on the kids, will go this way or that way. Because all my parents come in on a different journey and in a different place. And
Mhm.
so I kind of take it from there, what we need to do additional testing on. Again, because you can run the gamut of stuff and it could all come back. It's fine. It's not, but my tests, those three tests are not going to come back okay and pretty. They're not. And so that's what I like to start focusing on.
While you were talking about that, it reminded me of that movie about Temple Grandin. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? Claire
Yeah.
Danes played it, and Temple Grandin, who was on the spectrum,
Yep.
right? And she only ate yogurt because, and Jello maybe, definitely yogurt because they talked about in the movie that she had a sensitive stomach and only trusted yogurt. But meanwhile, she, we could both be thinking, well, that she might be keeping herself in that state more because
Yeah.
she's only eating yogurt, and maybe even the dairy and everything else in the yogurt
Sure.
could be contributing. But I want to go backwards a little bit. So, for the purposes of this podcast, which is
Yeah.
all about inflammation, how is inflammation connected to autism and ADHD? I don't think that's a connection that most people would make.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one they're starting to make because parents are starting to have their own health issues, mainly around inflammation, autoimmune, gut issues, right? But we've always called the gut the second brain, and I think many are now will say it's probably the first brain. And so early on, I take a very detailed intake. It's about 20 pages, just my intake alone, because I want to know when did you see things happen? What were they eating? Types of things. Because a lot of times sometimes first foods never go well, right? And they started out of the gate picky eating. Some of them, not so much, but other signs of inflammation. So they had horrible rashes. They were sick all the time. There's always reflux. There's always something I find that was actually the seed of the problem back then. And then we went ahead and threw milk, oats, carbs, grain, gluten, and we glutened them and dairied them to death. And so we fed. And for a majority of us, even my parents will say, we went gluten and dairy free and like, I feel so much better. Or my husband stopped doing this, or I started doing that, right? And so when we get enough inflammation in the gut, it will affect the brain. It's just kind of a matter of time. I always tell parents, the brain and the gut, there's a highway in between, and the highway becomes so full of cars that nothing can get through, right? And so if I can get rid of that inflammation as quickly as I can, and thank God in kids it's quick. Thank God it's so
True.
quick. It's not like us. We're like little hot messes walking around in society, but the kiddos, they can't grocery shop for themselves, right? They can't. You can just keep your house clean so they can't get into it, right? Because where there's a will, there's a way, and they are very very, very much on a mission. But that it's the same with adults. It's that gut brain connection that's just messy. And I tell parents, we see such great, incredible results, but I tell them, do not forget that you can go back. You can fix, repair, remove, do all the fun things, but then you can regress, which is the other R I don't like, right? So
Right.
my job, a lot of it is education. I spend a lot of time with families so they understand, look, these vitamins and supplements are only for a short time, right? But the things we're learning about their body is sort of for the long term. So after 6 months or so, we kind of go, okay, we've looked at labs, we know things are better. What do we stay on long term, right? What are those predispositions that maybe got us there? Because we all carry that stuff. That's why we get family histories. Because if you look back on
Right.
family histories, it's inflammation as long as the list is.
Right.
So yeah, it makes them very foggy. Like people will say, oh, my child is really spacey. It's like they're there, but they're checked out, right?
Right.
And you and I know that's food too, right? That spaciness. We've all felt it, that kind of like you get done eating and you're like, oh, right? That's what your kid's going through, inflammatory, right? but now they're uncomfortable. So what do? They're crying, they're screaming, they're throwing a fit, they're stimming more, they're not sleeping at
Right.
night, right?
Right.
What do we do? Well, we can advocate for ourselves. They can't.
I think about all of these signs that you're talking about from my own son from literally the moment he was born.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sleep literally until he was 6.5. He never slept through the night. He had terrible chronic constipation, sometimes would go even 2 weeks without a poop.
Yeah.
He had spontaneous vomiting all the time.
Wow.
Um, and all of the doctors that we took him to were like, oh, give him Miralax. This
Yeah.
is, they really didn't understand the root cause of what was going on at all. And of course, this was before that I knew any better too. And I was trying my best and I was following all the doctor's orders and I'd given the Miralax for two
Right.
years. And at the end of that, I felt that one thing I know for sure is he's not deficient in Miralax.
I say the same thing, Elizabeth. I say the same thing. Amen. I love that. I say that too. I say that too. And but it's true. And I always tell parents, look, none of this is your fault. You did not do anything wrong. Matter of fact, you did everything right. It's the advice that we're giving you that sucks. It's
Right,
not you, it's us. It's our system. It's how we think. And we don't have time to find the root cause because they have 15 minutes that insurance is paying for. What are you going to do in 15 minutes? Right?
right.
Except here's my symptoms, you know, that's it.
You're
Here
not going
you
to
go.
fill out a 30-page intake.
No, I'm unapologetically thorough.
But
No,
you
it's
have to
true.
be, you should be, because
Yeah,
that's really the due diligence part of all of
sure.
this
Yeah,
is
and it's true.
understanding.
They can't advocate for themselves and they don't complain. God bless them. Um, but with enough data, I'm really confident at what's going on by that hour, after that hour-long conversation with my parents.
Hmm.
Like, no
Hmm.
doubt, right? And I love what I do because every kid is different. But there are things that those threads with patients that are the same, right? And the thread is is real. And now I think the new statistic is like 1 in 6 children have a chronic illness.
Wow, I haven't seen that stat for children, but that's not surprising because I think it's 1 in 3 adults have a chronic illness.
Mm. And it's crazy. Like when I started in practice, it was 1 in every 150 kids were on the spectrum. Now it's 1 in 20. It was 1 in 36 for a while, and then it went down to 1 in 24. Don't quote me on that because I'm having a mind moment. Having a menopause moment, y'all. Um, but it's anyway, it's staggering, right? And then um, even this notion that girls don't have autism, which
Oh, yeah.
is
Let's explore
disgustingly
that.
infuriating to me. It's so, I just had it happen the other day. This mom said, well, I didn't think girls could get autism. And I was like, gosh, what is happening? Why in 18 years has this not gotten better? And, I can't go at it alone, but it's because girls and boys clinically come at you totally different. And let's be honest, all the research, all the studies, all the things we know were all boys in those studies. Everything was boys, 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 boys. So innately, we taught this is a boy thing. This is a boy thing. This is a boy thing. But it's not a boy thing. We have tons of girls on the spectrum, underserved, underdiagnosed, and then they're being diagnosed with personality disorders, bipolar,
Ah,
given medications for those things and having horrible reactions. They're cutting themselves, they're attempting suicide, they're getting eating disorders. I mean, it gives me the chills. I have for years, April is Autism Awareness Month, and for years and years and years, I've dedicated the entire month to girls on the spectrum. And even when we've done a couple videos in the practice, I would make sure I invited some of my moms, some of my girls, right? Because people need to see this cute little girl who all the kids look perfectly normal and cute. This cute little girl is on the spectrum. right? Because they're looking for the kids screaming, flapping, sitting in the corner, not being social, lining up their cars. That's not my girls. My girls are social, some of them verbal. Well, a lot of them verbal. They like to be around people. They don't want to sit in the corner. And they're that we call them the great maskers because their repetitive play is playing the same way each time, like almost doing things exactly in this order. So they're playing Barbies
Uh-huh.
and they're sitting with another kid parallel playing, right? But they're doing the same actions a lot of the times. If you're really looking at their play, it's kind of like, or they're doing exactly what the other person's doing. They're great at mimicking. So it's how they mask really well. They blend in really well. And a lot of the boys that are, more severe on the spectrum don't want to be around people, right? Don't want to do that. And our girls are just not that way. Do they still have behavior issues? Yeah, yeah, for sure. But they have pooping issues, they have GI issues, they get sick, they get rashes, they get all the other stuff. It just we don't talk about it. We just say, "Oh, they're probably fine because they're not stimming and they play with other kids." Those two things make them not on the spectrum. And it's just like blows my mind. Like, y'all, they don't have to check every box. What are you doing? And I tell parents, please don't wait till you get a diagnosis. If something in your gut says something isn't right and this person's telling me not to worry, what is the harm in getting an assessment? Nothing. If anything, it's going to give you some peace. And some parents might be saying, yeah, I've gotten an assessment. They told me they were fine. I would be like, I want to talk to you about what assessment you had done. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because it's true, Elizabeth. Some doctors, excuse me, some patients, parents go to the doctor and they fill out their own questionnaires, right? Because
Uh-huh.
again, it's for speed, right? We got to get you in, we got to get you out. We got to get you in, we got to get you out. And I do a lot of that in my intake, but anything that flags me, we're going to have a discussion about it, right? And I'm going to
Mhm.
dig deeper and I'm going to get to know why, because there's a reason why they do everything. And some things are like, don't worry, and other things are worry. And then I have my kids, like my girls that are great maskers that sit right on that line. I had a mom I was talking to the other day, right on that line. And I said, look, here's the deal. He's not bad enough, okay, true story, bad enough to diagnose. So there's nothing to do. And I told the parents, look, you have two options. You wait till he gets bad enough, or you get busy. My advice is the latter. Get busy. Get busy and get to work. Because if you could have it where your kid is not diagnosable because you stepped in early, like greatest gift ever, which is yes, possible, 100%.
So when you say get to work for those people, those parents
Yeah,
who are wondering what to do, whether their child has been diagnosed or they
sure.
maybe suspect, what does that work look like?
Yeah, good question. When I mean that is seeking out somebody like me, somebody in functional medicine, in pediatrics. Please let me preface that, guys. Okay. I have parents all the time go, well, if the labs look this bad, how must mine look? I have this, and this. And I'm like, okay, I don't do adults. I don't want to do adults. I don't want to talk to you, right? I deal with you because I love your kids and I love you, but I love your kids more. So go see someone who does that thing, right? And so, no, we're not on every corner, right? But we're there, and we're accessible and doing the labs and finding out what is going on and having somebody to just really walk you through it, right? And for my parents, I do get parents that are, really afraid of the food. And even after I've walked them through, they say, you know what, I don't feel confident going to the store. I kind of panic. And so I have someone I work with here, and she does telemed as well, and she's amazing. I mean, she'll get on video with them at the grocery store, be like, here, can I get this? No, here's why. So not only is she like, no, you can't buy that, and let me tell you why, right? But let's get an alternative, And so I always say it takes a village. We all know that saying, but it's really that village is not just outside of your family, it's us too, right? Because they become a part of my family and I theirs. And it takes all of us kind of working together and finding everybody that we need in that particular time, whether it now or in the future, right? But get to work means like, don't wait. Just go see someone. Just go find out. Just get some, if nothing, get peace of mind, right?
Right. So can
But
you
parents are
share?
hard. Mhm.
Right. It's tough to be a parent, I have to
Yeah, so,
say.
so, so hard.
Before I became a parent, I had a lot of opinions on parenting. And since I became a parent of a high demand child, that is completely flipped.
Yeah, my parents will like I'm very easygoing, so I tell parents, look, lying to me or withholding anything from me is not to your benefit because I know what's going on and I'm not going to judge you. So like just tell me what it is so I can help you, right? Don't suffer in silence. That's just silly.
Right. That's not helping anybody.
No, it's not.
Can you share any stories of your patients who you've seen make a radical turnaround after they've started implementing some of these functional medicine, integrative medicine protocols?
Yeah, so I don't get to because my patients are all over the place, right? And so every once in a while, um, I get I get videos and pictures and um, one of the testimonials that's on our website when I was talking about girls, the first person I thought about was Carly May, and she is the cutest thing you've ever seen. I always used to tell her, Mom, I'm gonna steal her because she looks like me. Like we could, like the three of us could be related. And she's precious. And she was on the spectrum. Mom was a nurse. So it's like, right? Like what's happening, right? And so
Yeah.
she did fantastic. And she started speaking and she would say, she'd get up in the morning and say, Mommy, I want to go shopping. And she watched like British cartoons. And so she would have a British accent. And so we just found that hilarious because she liked to talk in a British accent all the time. So that was hilarious. Um, Other pictures of like the kids hugging another kid when they wouldn't even play or holding hands with another kid at school, right? Um, just just like what another family I could think of is they kind of took a picture. They were on a walk and she was on her bike and they were having a conversation with her and she was, chit-chatting. And
Uh-huh.
these are connections that a parent of a neurotypical child would never understand. And that is my kid has never said mom or dad or come play with me or I want to go shopping, even if it's in a British accent, right? These are things that that many people take for granted, right? Because you're not, I mean, thank God you can, but these are things where your kids don't they look through you. They don't look at you, right? And a lot of my parents are not as connected as they could be. Like like Dr. Brooks, how do I know that my kid even knows I'm their mom? Like I don't even know that he knows who I am. Well, they absolutely
Mhm.
know who you are. Like don't mistake a child on the spectrum for stupidity or being slow or being inept. They will prove you wrong all day long. Another one of my kids, nonverbal, um, super smart, and went to the first grade when I first started seeing him, and he was getting overstimulated. And so we were working through like, okay, what do we need to talk about with the IEP and what's going on with the teacher? And he went missing one day and they couldn't find him. And I would tell her all the time, when they're in the car and yeah, they hate being in the car. And I said, do they ever do that thing where like you're going somewhere they like to go or you're going that direction and then you turn a different way and they have a meltdown? Yeah, it happens all the time. So I said, well, then when you get in the car, tell them where you're going and do not stray from those directions and things will go better. So I told the same mom, look, you take him to school every day. I assure you he could get home all by himself if he wanted to. And what's really creepy about that is I said that as an example, and he sure did. He walked out of his classroom, he walked home, miles, walked
Wow.
home, was sitting with the neighbor, having cookies that were not gluten free, I will tell you. And of course, all of us were crying and worried and all the things. But I said to her that day, don't ever think your son is stupid ever again, ever again. They have a lock and key, be it for better or for worse. They don't remember, they don't forget anything.
It makes me think of the telepathy tapes. Are you aware of that podcast?
No, but you're like the third person to tell me about it.
Oh, absolutely
I need to write it
fascinating.
down.
The telepathy tapes. If anyone who's listening hasn't listened to them, life-changing. It's really just amazing what's on those in that podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard about it. Wrote it down.
so I know that you have a whole structured program, and I know
Hmm.
that it's development focused and it
Sure.
includes education and guidance. So what can you tell us about how that works and why that works so well for kids with autism or other neurodevelopment or neurodivergent disorders?
Yeah. You know how earlier I said I realized very early and like thankfully with a lot of good mentorship as well that if you do things in a certain way, in a certain order, they always work faster, better, last longer. It's just from years of doing it, right? And knowing if I do these things, there will be a benefit 100% of the time. Okay, now when I get to that next layer of improvement, now where do we have to tweak, right? And so what I've put together is sort of a developmental program for parents. So we have kind of a structured way to go through things.
Hmm.
And it gives us, I always focus on four main areas um, as my foundation. So I focus on gut, behavior, appetite, sleeping. Because those things, when they're all in line, it's amazing how functional a kid will be with or without a diagnosis all day long, right?
Hmm.
And I wanted the program for any parent, child of any age, right? Even a child who we have a kid on the spectrum, we have another one that's 3. So far, everything is okay. Then I always tell my parents, whatever we're doing for one, do it for both, right? And if we have to start digging into your little, then we will. But I want the parents to have a benefit across the whole family. It's not just about your kid on the spectrum, it's about all of you, right? Because we don't need more than one child in the house having issues or problems. And I don't want my kiddo being, you know, kind of the one left out of the family, right? And that's really psychologically not good. And I know people are like, they can't tell. Yeah, they can, right? It's the same way an infant knows what energy you have. If you're stressed and worried, they're screaming their head off and you're like, what's happening? Right? That never changes, guys. They just get a voice, right? And so I want them working with me, having handouts, videos, checklists, our labs, all that fun stuff. I love all the things that we have now, getting all the supplements delivered to the house and, all these great things that we have that we did not have even 10 years ago. So I like
Right.
to make it super simple. We talk once a month and we kind of just go on the journey. And I think, my secret to my success all the years is because I do what I say and I say what I do, right? I don't
Hmm.
just tell people do this and I don't do it myself. And I don't judge, right? And I'm 2 steps ahead of you at all times. I'm gonna tell you what's coming up, what to expect. If these things aren't going this way, email me the next day, right? I don't want them at home anxious and worried because being a parent is so hard. So I'm not here to make it harder. I'm here to make it as easy as possible and take some of that burden and anxiety away.
So how can people find you who are listening to this, who are thinking,
Yeah.
wow, I really
So
need this for my kid?
yeah. So I did create a bunch of new social media platforms for it, actually specifically. So Healing Roots Pediatrics is where they'll find information about that program. And then I'm also going to leave a little thing for people to download called the Hidden Inflammation and Gut Clues in Kids. So you can print it out or pull it up on your computer, go through it, see if any of it makes sense, right? Because I think sometimes just knowing, well, shoot, should I? Because look at how many people might tell you everything's fine and then you realize later it's not fine, right? And so,
Right.
you and I are both here to kind of raise awareness. Like if it feels wrong, it's probably wrong, right? And reach out for help. you don't have to do this alone. That's why we're here.
Yes, yes. And isn't that the most important thing to realize that there is help out there,
Yeah.
even if you've tried everything and nothing has helped or you've not found anything and you feel like, how can this be my life? Like, what can I
Yeah.
do about it?
A
There's
hundred
more that
percent.
you just haven't found the right person yet to help you, which might be
Yeah.
Dr. Brooks.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on that health journey too. You just get so tired of trying, right? And I don't blame parents. I've cried more tears with my parents than I can even tell you. And I get emotional just thinking about it. It makes me so sad. And you and I can advocate for ourselves because of what we do, right? But, you know, a parent in engineering or in finance, like they're really smart. They can't advocate for themselves because they don't know the system. And the
Yes.
system is not always super helpful. So, yeah, get the handout and at least sit down and go, okay, is this a thing I need to be worried about or not a thing, right? And then you can always get a consult with me. You can schedule a 15-minute free consult and we can run through it and I'll let you know what I think.
Great. So this is Dr. Amber Brooks. Her website is Healing Pediatrics. No, yes, Healing Roots
Roots.
Pediatrics, I should
Yeah,
say. HealingRootsPediatrics.com. And all of your information, Amber, will be in the show notes.
great.
Any final words of advice for parents who are struggling with their neurodivergent child?
Yes. Gosh, there's so many, right? Um, I love the Martin Luther King quote. I actually have it right behind me. Having faith is taking the next step even when you don't see the whole staircase. And I think it sums up everything that I do, that we don't always see everything. But if you have a little bit of faith, it can go a really, really long way and change your life.
Yes, so have some faith in your kiddo that
Yeah.
there's more than what you are seeing and that their potential is more than what you're witnessing.
Hmm.
Don't give up on your kid, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Amber, for being with
thank
me
you.
today. I
Yeah,
appreciate
I
this. I
appreciate
think
it.
this is great information for parents that really they don't hear in many places. And there's a whole world beyond your pediatrician to explore that can really change your life, your kid's life, and everyone's life who comes after you. So
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you. And for everyone who's listening, tune in next time. We'll see you then. And that's another case filed on the Inflammation Investigator. Remember, every symptom is your body's way of communicating. We just need to learn the language. If today's episode sparked something for you, I want to hear about it. Share your own investigation discoveries with me on social media at Elizabeth Yarnell or find me at elizabethyarnell.com. Your experience could be exactly what another listener needs to hear. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And here's the thing about investigations, they work best when you're not going it alone. If this podcast is helping you uncover the answers you've been searching for, please like, rate, subscribe, and review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. As a new podcast, these actions mean more than you know. Want to dive deeper into your own inflammation investigation? Head over to inflammationinvestigator.com, where you can take my free inflammation quiz to uncover which hidden triggers might be affecting your health. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Yarnell, your inflammation investigator, reminding you that the solutions to your health issues are out there. Let's find them together.